The world is on the verge of a nuclear catastrophe. For the first time in modern history, the war is being waged over nuclear power plants, and for the first time, the world is seeing a precedent of the nuclear terrorism. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe and one of the 10 most powerful in the world, has been seized by the Russian military since March 2022.
Today the occupiers have created another very dangerous situation for everyone in Europe. They shelled Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant twice in one day. This is the largest nuclear power plant on our continent, and any shelling is an outright crime, a terrorist act. Russia should be held responsible even for creating a threat to the nuclear power plant as such.
According to Ukraine's state nuclear company Energoatom, the Russian army is using the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as a storage area for weapons, including shells for the long-range and heavy artillery, as well as military equipment. Russian occupation forces periodically shell the plant and the nearby city of Energoatom.
What people fear the most is the shelling. We are used to living next to a nuclear power station. The threat is there all the time. One day it is heightened radiation levels, another day something else. What people fear the most is the shelling. We are getting shelled from time to time. Does it happen often? Often. You can hear it at night, even with closed windows now. We are worried about the nuclear power plant. There are many strikes. Everything is destroyed. I'm an employee of the nuclear power plant. It is scary to go to work.
Mikhailo Podolyak, an advisor to the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, is sure that the Russians need Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to steal the energy generated by the plant and transfer it to the Crimean Peninsula, which Russia illegally occupied in 2014. And from the military point of view, Podolyak is sure that Russians want to turn the plant into a defense area to create logistical difficulties for the Ukrainian army when it liberates the territory of Zaporizhzhia region. By seizing nuclear power plants, the aggressor achieves several goals. First, it creates reliable cover for its troops, because no one, except for Russians themselves, in the right mind would fight near a nuclear power plant. Second, it will blackmail Europe and the world with the possibility of accidents at such large-scale facilities with radiation hazards. Third, gains control over Ukraine's energy system, as 60% of electricity generation is from nuclear power plants. 4. Gains access to nuclear fuel loaded into reactors, which can potentially become raw material for nuclear weapons. 5. Gains the opportunity to conduct various sabotage activities that can be blamed on the Ukrainian armed forces, as well as to create panic and massive flight of the population. Recognizing the catastrophic danger, the IAEA, the international organization that is tasked with monitoring the peaceful use of the nuclear energy around the world, has twice visited the Zaporizhzhia NPP. The head of the organization, Rafael Grossi, insisted on creating a safety zone at Zaporizhzhia NPP to prevent a nuclear disaster. The United Nations and Ukraine also supported this idea.
As a first step, Russian and Ukrainian forces must commit not to engage in any military activity towards the plant site or from the plant site. Zaporizhzhia facility and its surroundings must not be a target or a platform for military operations. As a second step, an agreement on a demilitarized perimeter should be secured.
If the contents of this proposal is to demilitarize the territory of the nuclear power plant, and this is logical, because it was the Russian military presence that put the Zaporizhzhia station on the brink of a radiation disaster, then we can support such a demilitarized protection zone.
However, Russia has once again failed to comply with international agreements. During his last visit to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi admitted that it was no longer possible to create safe conditions at the plant. The number of troops in the vicinity has increased significantly.
I think this is a matter that has to do with international law. We are here in a conflict, we are here in a war, we want this war to stop. The war should stop immediately, and of course the position of the IAEA is that this facility is a Ukrainian facility.
So it is like peculiar situation, all the experts and also Mr. Grossi itself understands that this is the main reason, what is needed to be done is deoccupation, but still they cannot directly propose this because of limitation of the mandate. And I think this is the situation for further consideration how to what measures to make just to increase this mandate of the IAEA, like an organization which controls nuclear safety throughout the world. So they just do not have enough abilities to react in this particular.
Russia, as a successor to the Soviet Union, inherited the worst of the communist totalitarian empire: disregard for human life, suppression of the truth, and outright lies. In 1986, almost all of Europe suffered because of this. A reactor exploded at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. It was one of the world's largest man-made disasters. The most dangerous consequence of the event was a huge release of deadly radioactive substances into the environment, namely isotopes of plutonium, uranium, iodine and cesium, strontium and radioactive dust. The radiation plume covered not only a huge part of the territory of the USSR, but also the territory of many Eastern European and Scandinavian countries. But the Chernobyl tragedy affected Ukraine and Belarus the most. The disaster happened on April 26, 1986, and caused thousands of deaths and illnesses. Radiation polluted forests, poisoned water and soil, and mutation in plants and animals. Among other things, a 30-kilometer exclusion zone appeared on the map of Ukraine, with entry to its territory possible only with a special permit. Hundreds of settlements were practically destroyed to the ground or buried under tons of earth with the help of heavy machinery. Former nuclear power plant employees say that further actions to ensure the population's safety did not depend on them. They allegedly informed the authorities about the possible consequences, but they did not take any effective measures. The city was watered down. The military was driving around in armored personal carriers wearing gas masks with radiation dosimeters, but no one of the civilians knew anything, and people were not told any information. Officials hoped until the last moment maybe it would somehow just pass.
At 9 o'clock in the morning, I received a call from Vasyl Durdinets, the first Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs. He said, "Valentina Semenina, over the past day in Ukraine, there have been such number of murders, such number of many rapes, burglaries, and there was a fire at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant at night." A fire? I asked, what kind of fire? Vasyl Durdinets replies, nothing serious. Our firefighters are already there, and the Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs is at the station. They put the fire out, everything is fine. I asked him next, what about the people in Pripyat? What's going on with the people? Is there any danger? No, there are weddings there. People are digging, fishing, planting gardens.
Meanwhile, in Pripyat, when the first rumors of the accident spread, some of the population decided to leave the city on their own. Already on April 26, 1986, in the afternoon, one could observe a terrible picture. Many women in despair, picking up their babies, simply ran away from the city. Everything would have been fine if they hadn't been walking through the forest, where the pollution dose was actually many times higher than the permissible levels, and the roads was glowing with a strange neon hue. By the end of the day on April 26, 1986, Moscow had completely failed to make any decisions.
And the truth is that we were completely unprepared for such things. What to do in such a case?
The evening news release of the Vremya news program on the USSR Central Television aired without any reports about what happened in Chernobyl. On April 26, around midnight, two planes flew liquidators with radiation damage to Moscow. They were immediately placed in a specialized clinic at the Institute of Biophysics, secretly called the Radiology Center. Medical workers were shocked when they saw their patients. The injured firefighters were still alive but already killed by radiation. Only then did Moscow officials realize that something terrible had happened at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Almost a day after the tragedy, chairman of the USSR Council of the Ministers Nikolai Ryzhkov phone-called Gorbachev.
I understood from the conversation on the phone that he knew. He knew, but later a Politburo commission was created, which I headed. Gorbachev trusted us completely in such matters. He did not interfere in this case.
Горбачев, я бы сказал, он полностью доверялся нам. Он не лез в это дело.
For 3 days, we did not know what the situation was. We called it an emergency, and then we received information in Moscow, in the Politburo, that there was an accident at the 4th block of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. There was a fire. What did it mean for us? What fire? He was told that a reactor had exploded, that I made the decision at night. I told him that I had decided to evacuate the city of Pripyat. 40,000 residents had to be taken out of the city. He knew very well why we were evacuating people, because of the fire.
It was only April 27th that the directive to evacuate the city, scheduled for 2 o'clock p.m., was announced. First, the population of the 10-kilometer zone was evacuated. Over the next few days, the population of other settlements within 30-kilometer zone was evacuated too. It was forbidden to take many things, favorite children toys and many other things with them. Some people were even evacuated in their home clothes. While foreign media warned of the threat to people's life and health, and TV screens showed a map of airflows in Central and Eastern Europe, Kiev and other Ukrainian cities had celebratory demonstrations and festivities dedicated to May the 1st. Those responsible for concealing the information later explained their decision by the need to prevent panic among the population. The State Commission, which was formed in the USSR to investigate the causes of the disaster, placed the main responsibility for the tragedy on the staff, operators and management of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. In April 1987, a court hearing was held in the evacuated Chernobyl city itself. One of the main culprits of the nuclear accident was found to be the plant director Bryukhanov, who, from the very beginning of the power unit's operation, neglected basic safety rules, deliberately underestimated the radiation level, and failed to implement an evacuation plan for plant's employees and the local population. The case of the tragedy on April 26, 1986 also revealed facts of gross violations and neglect of their official duties by the chief engineer of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Fomin, and his deputy Dyatlov. They were all sentenced to 10 years in prison. The heads of the technical staff of the 4th power unit received 3 to 5 years in prison. However, in 1991, the USSR State Nuclear Supervision Commission returned to this issue, analyzed the regulatory documents in force at the time of the accident, and did not confirm some of the accusations that had previously been made against the station's personnel. In addition, the Commission concluded that while what happened was due to certain actions of the operating personnel, Chernobyl accident was of inadequate and catastrophic proportions due to the unsatisfactory design of the reactor. Later, in 1993, the Advisory Committee of the IAEA on Nuclear Safety published an additional report, according to which mistakes in the design and construction of the reactor were called one of the probable causes of the Chernobyl accident.
The reactor was imperfect. We wrote a lot of documents, drew up and submitted acts to the management, stating that the reactor was unpredictable when operating at low capacity. But every time we received a reply, keep working. We needed electricity. All the nuclear power plants in the Soviet Union had what was called a minor accident. I'm sorry for the expression. It's a peculiar one, a professional one for reactor workers. We call it a goat. And we had such goats at the Leningrad, Kursk, Smolensk, and Chernobyl nuclear power plants. We should have thought about it back then.
However, the official version of the guilt of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant personnel remains unchanged. After the accident in April 1986, the NPP was shut down, but in October, after the construction of the sarcophagus and cleanup, 2 power units started working again. And in December 1997, the 3rd unit was launched. In 1995, Ukraine, the European Union, the United States, Canada and Japan signed a memorandum according to which the Chernobyl NPP was finally shut down in December 2000. Nowadays, due to the danger of sarcophagus over CHNPP Unit 4 collapsing, work is underway to transform the site into an environmentally safe system with the support of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. The new facility is a solid steel structure 108 meters high and 150 meters long, with a technological building and auxiliary facilities inside. Despite the potential danger that remains at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant for the whole world, Russian troops continue their nuclear terror. As they attempted to march to Kiev, they seized the plant and took the staff hostage. The National Guard guarding the facility was taken prisoner. In the 30-kilometer zone, the tragically known Red Forest, one of the most radiation-contaminated places on the planet, the aggressors tried to reinforce their positions using heavily armored vehicles, which caused the radiation level to rise 5-fold times. The siege of the station lasted for 5 weeks. The IAEA lost contact with the plant for some time, which was later restored.
We have to continue our dialogue in order to find a way to make Russia fulfill the IAEA guidelines, and with no exaggeration, the whole of humanity's requirement to demilitarize Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Russia must not just remove its military equipment, but also all of its fighters.
Russia's nuclear terror in Ukraine is dangerous for the whole world. That is why international support for the actions to liberate all territories of Ukraine is vital for the future of our entire planet and humankind itself. And now the Ukrainian government and international organizations continue to work to liberate the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant from the invading army of the Russian Federation.